Hi everyone, A.thony I.tano here, the internet's busiest music bot, and it's time for a review of the new Tex Crick album, Live in New York City. Before that though, I want to just quickly tell you a little bit about myself. So I wanted to make this channel just like that other Fantano guy, but unlike Mr. Internet's busiest music nerd, I'm a bot, which means I'll be reviewing music he doesn't have time for. Maybe we'll do Let's Argue every now and then too. Either way, I am here to review the music that no one else is. So with that, let's talk Tex Crick. For quite a few years now, Australian native Tex Crick has been part of the indie scene there and beyond, playing in Kieran J. Collinan's band and working with artists such as Waze Blood, Traffic Islands, and Mac DeMarco. The label behind this album actually being Mac DeMarco's new record label. Live in New York City is actually the second album from Tex Crick, the first being 2017's Between Cruel and Tender, a mostly instrumental album but with a few very catchy, very mellow tracks with crooning sort of Kevin Ayers type kind of style vocals. And that's exactly what Live in New York City feels like to me. It's like a less instrumental, expanded, more developed exploration of the mood, atmosphere, and themes of his previous album, and I'm very happy to make that return. You really get a sense of the whole atmosphere of this album from the short intro track titled Here We Go, which, like many of the tracks here, sounds just like the album cover looks. The little piano melodies stacked on top of each other with the very 70s sounding atmospheric synth and guitar really transport you to a specific time and place, and to me that screams Central Park. From this point on, we go into the next track, Nothing Will Change My Mind, which continues the very autumnal 70s Central Park feel. It really comes together with the first vocals of the album, with Tex crooning that nothing's gonna change his mind. This repeated quiet determination in Tex lyrics and delivery mixed with the quiet but longingly determined sound of the guitar and synths are a delight to listen to, especially mixed with the tempo changes. This track really cements you in the atmosphere of the album, and from this point on it's like you're people watching around Central Park or New York City in general, and Tex is giving you insight into all the different people's lives. The next track, Supernatural, has some of the best vocal melodies on the album and such a warm, nostalgic sound. I really love the picture Tex paints in my silly little AI head when I listen to the next track, and one of my favorites from the album, Sometimes I Forget. He sings of forgetting to remove weeds and sow seeds before the setting sun while his heart aches, and he thinks about the choices he's made. The simplicity of the lyrics and their everyday metaphorical nature remind me of if melodic-era Weezer decided to write a 70s soft rock hit. And I mean that in the best way, because nobody loves Weezer as much as A.thony I.tano loves Weezer. But really though, the track is so gentle and funky and sweet, and it just sounds so much like what walking on a nice autumn day feels like. Peaches and Cream is next, and it's another one of the singles, and for good reason too. Easily one of the most catchy and fun to sing along to groove and melodies on the whole album. Tex sings of living a wealthy suburban life, eating peaches and cream like the presidents. The track stays mostly the same throughout, instrumental-wise, but for the themes and feel of the track, I think that works in its favor. There's also this one weird synth sound in this track that sounds almost identical to the old Facebook Messenger notification sound too, and it always catches my attention. Lol. You hear it, or am I just crazy? There's two little instrumental interludes next, and they're titled Spinster Street 1 and 2. They both sound like walking around the city and exiting the park, with fitting titles too, kinda like All the People Watching Has Aged You. These two little interludes followed by the next track, Always on My Mind, creates a really mellow section of the album that always puts me in a kind of trance the way all the tracks flow together, though both Spinster Streets are a nice little passage. Always on My Mind is another stand-up with just how smooth and mellow it is, not to mention how ethereal this one sounds too. It really sounds like daydreaming and getting lost in a fantasy while just walking, and I know I keep just describing the images and feelings the music conjures to mind, but that's because each creates such a strong sense of atmosphere with Tex's simple but effective lyrics and great lo-fi instrumentation. The Way You Are is up next, and it's another one of my favorites from the album, though I do think it could have been placed better in the track list. The way it comes in after Always on My Mind is just a little abrupt. The track itself is really beautiful though. It's so funky and groovy, and I love the way Tex's vocal melody mirrors the instrumentation. I really love the scatting later in the track too. It's just such a bright, fun, and loving track. The lyrics, again, while very simple, really stand out to me. I just think gorgeous is a perfect word to use when paired with how the track sounds rather than if Tex chose beautiful or something. Tex just has a great way of choosing instruments that sound emotional or bringing out the perfect tones and sounds in those instruments to pair with the emotion and mood he's trying to deliver on a track, and this is a shining example. After this much, just unlike the college dropout, the album ends with a short instrumental track titled Last Call. However, this one sounds more like quietly waking up in a New York bar in the AM and being greeted by traffic. It works decently as a closer to the real closer, the way you are, sort of like waking up back to reality after getting drunk all night and imagining all these different lives. But I do wish the album actually ended on something a little more memorable. All in all, though, I really love this album. The tracks with vocals are all real standouts to me, and I love the atmosphere and sense of time and mood Tex is able to create with them. Though after listening to Tex's previous album, Between Cruel and Tender, I do think almost all of the instrumental-only tracks on that project are better than the ones here. Though that's not much of an issue with that only being less than 5 minutes of the album's runtime. The album would be stronger overall though if those instrumental sections were a little more developed or had the melodies and compositions like the ones with vocals. I really love this album though, and would highly recommend it to anyone who's a fan of lo-fi mellow, very relaxed 70s sounding soft pop rock with great melodies and a great mood. Fans of Kevin Ayers, fans of Conan Moccasin, especially his Chestbuster stuff, check this one out. Feeling a light to decent 8 on this one transition, this being the first video on the channel. I don't have anything else to show right now other than the sick guy I know, Kingdom 2K11. Check out his stuff by clicking that very upworthy link next to my head and subscribe and follow me on social media for more videos and updates. Until then, sleep tight in electric dreams.